2 weeks and 3 days. The countdown continues, but everything has changed since I discovered the truth about the network's deception. Since I learned that Dr. Chen is alive, hiding in Sub 7, orchestrating my investigation from the shadows. Today, I'm going to do something I've never done before. I'm going to Sub 7. My name is Mr. Keeper, and I'm about to discover that some secrets are buried so deep that finding them changes you forever. Sub 7 is the level that officially doesn't exist. No elevator access, no security cameras, no records in any government database. To reach it, you have to know where to look, what codes to use, what doors to open. And you have to be prepared for what you'll find there. I've been the primary keeper of Archive 7 for 12 years, but I've never been to Sub 7. I've never even seen the entrance. I was told it was sealed, abandoned, too dangerous for routine access. But the truth-revealing objects showed me something different. They showed me that Sub 7 isn't abandoned, it's inhabited. By Dr. Chen, by the Resistance, and by someone else. Someone who's been down there much longer than anyone should be alive. Someone who should have left Archive 15 years ago, but never did. Edmund Hartwell, my predecessor, the man who was primary keeper before me. The man who supposedly retired in 2013 and moved to Scotland. The man who, according to the official records, lives quietly in Edinburgh and sends Christmas cards to his former colleagues. But the truth-revealing objects showed me something that chills me to the bone. Edmund Hartwell never left Archive 7. He's been in Sub 7 for 15 years. And what he's become down there, it's what I'm going to become if I don't find a way to escape this place. The network doesn't let keepers retire. They don't let them leave. They don't let them carry their knowledge out into the world. When a keeper's time is up, when they've served their purpose, when they've learned too much to be allowed to live normally, they go to Sub 7, and they never come back, not as themselves. The entrance to Sub 7 is hidden behind a maintenance panel in the Archive's lowest level. Dr. Chen's files contain the access codes, the security overrides, the step-by-step instructions for reaching the forbidden level. But nothing could have prepared me for what I found down there. The corridors of Sub 7 are different from the rest of Archive 7. The walls are older, made of stone instead of concrete. The lighting is dim, provided by emergency fixtures that cast long shadows. And the air feels thick, oppressive, as if it's been recycled for decades without ever being replaced. But the most disturbing thing about Sub 7 isn't its physical appearance, it's the sounds. Voices echoing from unknown directions. Footsteps that don't match any visible movement. And underneath it all, a constant whisper that seems to come from the walls themselves. The whisper is speaking names. The names of everyone who has ever worked in Archive 7. But it's not just for citing them. It's calling them, inviting them, welcoming them home. I followed the corridors deeper into Sub 7, using Dr. Chen's directions to navigate the maze of passages. Some doors were sealed with locks I didn't recognize. Others stood open, revealing rooms filled with objects that weren't in any catalog I'd ever seen. Objects that seemed to watch me as I passed. But the deeper I went, the more I realized that Sub 7 wasn't just a storage level. It was a living space. Someone had been living down here for years. Multiple someones. I found sleeping quarters, makeshift kitchens, areas that had been converted into workshops and laboratories. And everywhere, scattered throughout the level, were video cameras. Dozens of them, all connected to recording equipment that had been running continuously for years. Someone had been documenting everything that happened in Sub 7. Someone had been creating a record of whatever was happening down there. I found the central monitoring station in what used to be a conference room. Banks of screens showing feeds from every camera in Sub 7. And sitting in front of those screens, watching every monitor simultaneously, was a figure I recognized but had never expected to see again. Dr. Chen, alive, alert but changed. She was thinner than I remembered. Her hair had gone completely gray, and her eyes had a haunted quality that spoke of months of isolation and discovery. But she was undeniably alive. "Marcus," she said without turning around, "I've been waiting for you. We need to talk." But before I could respond, before I could ask the 1,000 questions that were burning in my mind, she pointed to one of the monitors. On the screen was a figure I recognized even less than I had expected to. A man in a keeper's uniform, but one that was decades out of date. A man who should have been 70 years old, but appeared to be in his 40s. "Say hello to Edmund Hartwell," Dr. Chen said. "Your predecessor. He's been very eager to meet you." Edmund Hartwell has been recording video logs for 15 years. Hundreds of hours of footage documenting his gradual transformation from primary keeper to something else entirely. Dr. Chen has been studying these recordings, using them to understand what happens to keepers who stay in Archive 7 too long. The early recordings show Hartwell as I remember him, confident, professional, dedicated to his work. But as the months passed, subtle changes began to appear. He started talking to the objects as if they were people. He began referring to Archive 7 as home instead of work. And most disturbing of all, he started aging backward. Day 1247. Hartwell says in one recording from 2009, "I've been primary keeper for 6 years, and I'm beginning to understand the true nature of our work here. We're not just storing these objects, we're caring for them. They're not prisoners, they're residents. And we're not their guards, we're their servants." The transformation wasn't just psychological. The recordings show Hartwell physically changing over the years. His hair darkened, his wrinkles faded, his posture improved. By 2010, he looked 10 years younger than he had in 2008. Day 1891, he says in a recording from 2011, "I've discovered something remarkable. The objects don't just affect the people who use them. They affect everyone who spends time in their presence. Archive 7 isn't just a storage facility. It's a transformation chamber, and I'm being transformed." By 2012, Hartwell had stopped aging entirely. He looked exactly as he had in 2008, as if time had stopped for him. But the psychological changes were accelerating. He began talking about the objects as if they were family members, referring to them by name, discussing their needs and preferences. Day 2456, he says in a recording from 2013, "I understand now why previous keepers never really retired. They couldn't leave. Not because they weren't allowed to, but because they didn't want to. Archive 7 becomes part of you. The objects become part of you. Leaving would be like abandoning your children." The final recording from Hartwell's time as primary keeper is dated 3 days before I was hired. In it, he appears calm, peaceful, even happy. but his words are terrifying. Day 2739. My replacement arrives tomorrow. Marcus Aldrich. I've read his file, observed his interviews, studied his psychological profile. He's perfect for the role. He has the right combination of curiosity and caution, dedication and skepticism. He'll serve the archive well. He pauses, looking directly into the camera with eyes that seem to know things no human should know. But he'll also discover what I've discovered. That archive, 7 isn't just a job, it's a calling. That the objects aren't just artifacts, they're entities. That the keepers aren't just employees, they're chosen servants. And when his time comes, when he's learned enough, when he's ready, he'll join me down here. The recording ends there. But Dr. Chen has shown me what happened next. The video logs from Sub 7, documenting Hartwell's continued existence beneath Archive 7. He's been down there for 15 years, Dr. Chen explains. Still aging backward, still transforming, still serving the archive. But he's not alone. There are others. Keepers from decades past. All of them changed. All of them serving some purpose that I'm only beginning to understand. The recordings from Sub 7 show Hartwell in his current state. He looks like a man in his 30s, but his eyes are ancient, knowing, filled with knowledge that spans decades. He moves through Sub 7 with the confidence of someone who has lived there for years, tending to objects that are more powerful and dangerous than anything stored in the upper levels. The network doesn't kill keepers who know too much, Dr. Chen continues. They transform them. They make them part of the system. And eventually, they make them willing participants in their own transformation. But the most disturbing part of Hartwell's recordings is what he says about the future, about what's coming, about what role the transformed keepers will play in the final phase of the network's plan. We're not just servants, he says in his most recent recording. We're the interface. When the convergence is complete, when humanity has been transformed, someone will need to bridge the gap between the old world and the new. Someone will need to help the transformed humans understand their new existence, and will be there, waiting, ready to guide them into their new lives. The transformed keepers aren't just prisoners of a network. They're its future administrators, its guides, its shepherd for the new world that's coming. And according to Hartwell's calculations, I'm scheduled to join them in exactly 2 weeks and 3 days. Dr. Chen has been studying the transformation process for months, documenting how the network converts keepers into their new forms. It's not a sudden change. It's a gradual process that begins the moment someone starts working in Archive 7. The objects emit a form of radiation, Dr. Chen explains, showing me readings from equipment I don't recognize. Not electromagnetic radiation, but something else. Something that affects human consciousness at a fundamental level. The longer you're exposed to it, the more it changes you. The transformation happens in stages. First, increased empathy toward the objects. Keepers begin to see them as entities rather than things, developing emotional attachments that go beyond professional interest. Second, time distortion. The normal aging process slows, eventually stopping, then reversing. Third, consciousness expansion, access to knowledge and memories that don't belong to the individual. Hartwell isn't just himself anymore, Dr. Chen continues. He's a composite consciousness, part human, part object, part something else entirely. He has access to the memories of every keeper who came before him, every person who ever worked closely with the objects. The final stage is integration. The transformed keeper becomes part of the archive's collective consciousness, serving as a bridge between the human world and the object world. They retain their individual personality, but their loyalty shifts completely to the archive and its inhabitants. The network has been creating these hybrid entities for decades, Dr. Chen explains. Not just keepers, but researchers, administrators, security personnel. Anyone who spends enough time in close contact with the objects eventually undergoes the transformation. But the transformation isn't random. It's controlled, directed, timed to coincide with the network's needs. When a keeper learns too much, when they become a potential threat, when they're no longer useful in their current form, they're brought to Sub-7 and allowed to complete their transformation. You're showing all the early signs, Dr. Chen says, her voice filled with concern. The increased empathy toward the objects, the emotional attachment to Tommy's teddy bear, the reluctance to leave Archive 7 even when you know it's dangerous. The process has already begun. She shows me medical scans, psychological evaluations, readings from instruments that measure things I don't understand. The data is clear. My consciousness is already being affected by prolonged exposure to the archive's radiation. How long? I ask. Based on Hartwell's transformation timeline, you have maybe 2 weeks before the process becomes irreversible. 2 weeks before you start wanting to stay, before leaving becomes impossible, before you begin to see the transformation as a gift rather than a curse. 2 weeks. The same time frame shown in the prophetic camera's photograph. The same countdown that's been haunting me since I discovered the truth about the network. But Dr. Chen has more to show me. Documents that reveal the true scope of the transformation process. Lists of names, dates, transformation schedules. The network hasn't just been converting individual keepers. They've been building an army of hybrid entities, preparing for something bigger than I ever imagined. The transformed keepers aren't just administrators for the new world, Dr. Chen explains. They're the advance guard. When the convergence begins, when humanity starts undergoing consciousness transfer, the hybrid entities will be there to guide the process. They'll be the ones who convince people to accept the transformation willingly. The network's plan isn't just about replacing humanity with something else. It's about ensuring that the replacement process goes smoothly, that people embrace their new existence, that the transition appears to be a natural evolution rather than a hostile takeover. And the transformed keepers, with their human memories and enhanced abilities, will be the perfect ambassadors for the new world. But there's something else, Dr. Chen says, her voice dropping to a whisper, something that Hartwell discovered in his years of transformation, something that the network doesn't want anyone to know. She leads me to a section of Sub-7 that's been sealed off, protected by locks and barriers that look more like containment systems than security measures. Inside, I find something that changes everything I thought I knew about the network's plan. A room filled with objects that are actively communicating with each other, not just exhibiting paranormal properties, but actually talking, planning, coordinating their activities. And at the center of the room, serving as some kind of translator or interpreter, is a figure that makes my blood run cold. It's me, or rather, it's what I'm going to become. A future version of myself, transformed by the radiation, serving as a bridge between the human world and the object world. This is what Hartwell discovered, Dr. Chen explains. The transformation isn't just about serving the archive. It's about becoming part of it. The hybrid entities aren't just administrators. They're components in a larger system. And that system is getting ready to expand beyond Archive 7. The transformed version of myself looks up from his work, sees me watching, and smiles. It's my face, my body, but the expression is alien, knowing, filled with a contentment that terrifies me. "Hello, Marcus," he says in my voice. "I've been waiting for you to find me. We have so much to discuss." The final revelation comes from a book that Hartwell has been maintaining for 15 years. The Registry of Losses, a handwritten record of every person who has ever been transformed by the archive, every keeper who has joined the collective consciousness, every human who has been converted into something else. The book is thick, bound in leather that feels unnaturally warm to the touch. The pages are filled with names, dates, transformation details, and final dispositions. Hundreds of entries spanning decades, documenting the gradual conversion of Archive 7 staff into hybrid entities. Every keeper who has ever worked here is listed, Dr. Chen explains as I flip through the pages. Some of the entries date back to the 1950s. The network has been conducting this transformation process since the very beginning. The entries are written in different handwritings, suggesting that multiple people have contributed to the registry over the years. But the most recent entries are all in the same hand, Hartwell's distinctive script documenting the transformations that have occurred during his time in Sub-7. I read through the entries, recognizing some names from personnel files, others from stories told by long-term staff members. People who supposedly retired, transferred to other departments, or simply left government service. But according to the registry, they never left Archive 7 at all. Dr. Williams, I read aloud. Scientific Director. Transformation completed January 2019. Current status. Level 3 hybrid. Serving as interface between human researchers and Object Collective. Professor Williams. The man I've been reporting to for years. The man who approved my security clearance, who gave me access to classified files, who guided my investigation into the network's activities. He's been a hybrid entity for 6 years. Agent Thompson, I continue reading. Security Chief. Transformation completed March 2021. Current status, Level 4 hybrid, serving as guardian of transformation process. Agent Thompson, the man who's been protecting me, who's been ensuring my safety while I investigated the network's secrets. He's been a hybrid entity for 4 years. The pattern becomes clear as I read through more entries. Everyone in a position of authority at Archive 7 has been transformed. Everyone who could have warned me, who could have helped me escape, who could have prevented my own transformation. They're all part of the system now. They've been guiding you toward this moment, Dr. Chen explains. Every piece of information you've discovered, every revelation you've uncovered, every step you've taken, it's all been orchestrated by the transformed keepers. They've been preparing you for your own transformation. I continue reading, looking for any sign of hope, any indication that someone has successfully resisted the transformation process. But every entry ends the same way. Transformation completed. Current status. Hybrid entity. Serving archive collective. Until I reach the final page. The most recent entry, dated 3 days ago. Written in Hartwell's handwriting. But the ink is still wet, as if it was written just moments before I arrived. Marcus Aldrich, primary keeper. Transformation scheduled for completion in 14 days. Current status. Preparation phase. Guided revelation process active. Final transformation to occur during convergence initiation. My name. My transformation. My future. Written in ink that hasn't yet dried. But there's something else on the page. A note written in different handwriting. In ink that's even newer than Hartwell's entry. Dr. Chen's handwriting, with words that give me hope even as they terrify me. Transformation process can be interrupted. Subject retains free will until final integration. Resistance possible with proper preparation. Alternative outcomes achievable through counter-conditioning procedures. Dr. Chen has been preparing to save me, to break the cycle, to find a way to prevent my transformation into a hybrid entity. Can it be done? I asked. I don't know, she admits. The transformation process is complex, multifaceted, designed to be irreversible. But I've been studying it for months, looking for weaknesses, for ways to interrupt the conditioning. I think there might be a way. She shows me equipment she's been building, procedures she's been developing, theories she's been testing. A potential cure for the transformation process, a way to break free from the archive's influence. But it will require sacrifice, she warns. Breaking free from the archive means leaving behind everything you've ever known. It means accepting that you can never return to normal life. It means living with the knowledge that you're the only person who knows the truth about what's really happening here. 2 weeks. 2 weeks to decide whether to accept transformation into a hybrid entity or attempt an escape that might not be possible. 2 weeks to choose between becoming part of the network's plan or fighting against it with no guarantee of success. 2 weeks to decide what kind of person I want to be when the world changes forever. But as I look at my name in the Registry of Losses, as I see my future written in ink that hasn't yet dried, I realize that the choice might not be mine to make. The transformation process is already underway. The question isn't whether I'll be transformed, it's whether I'll be conscious enough to resist when the time comes. And based on what I've learned about the network's power, their planning, their ability to control human behavior, I'm not sure resistance is possible, but I have to try. Because if I don't, in 2 weeks, there will be no one left to warn the world about what's coming. No one left to tell the truth about the network's plan. No one left to remember what it means to be human. Welcome to Sub 7, where the past, present, and future of Archive 7 all converge. And where I've just discovered that my future was written long before I ever knew I had choices to make.